Attention, if this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel and like this video. Your support helps us keep sharing epic tales of retribution. And before we continue, leave a comment with the country you're watching from. We love knowing where our global family is located. Some betrayals cut so deep they tear pieces from your soul. But what they don't know is that those empty spaces can be filled with something far more dangerous than love. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through our living room windows as I stood frozen in the doorway. My medical bag slipping from my numb fingers. The thud as it hit the hardwood floor seemed to echo eternally, but neither of them heard it. They were too busy destroying everything I thought I knew about my life. My husband, Michael, lay sprawled on our cream sectional sofa, the one we picked out together on our second anniversary, his head thrown back in ecstasy. Above him, moving with a practiced rhythm, was my sister, my own flesh and blood, the very sister who'd held my hand through medical school, who'd been my maid of honor, who'd cried with joy when Michael proposed. Lucy's auburn hair cascaded down her bare back like liquid fire, and for a moment, which stretched into an eternity, I watched them move together in our home, on our furniture, surrounded by our wedding photos that smiled from the mantelpiece like silent witnesses to this devastation. The clinic had been brutal today. 3 hours holding Mrs. Reynolds' hand as she received news that would change her world forever. Another hour with the Lopez family, watching their teenage son grapple with a diagnosis that would redefine his entire future. I'd come home exhausted, emotionally drained, craving nothing more than Michael's arms around me and perhaps some of Lucy's terrible jokes to lighten the mood. Michael's wedding ring glinted in the light as his hands clutched Lucy's waist, the same hands that had held me through my mother's funeral 6 months ago. The same hands that had caressed my face this morning as he whispered promises about our upcoming anniversary trip to Paris. It was then that Lucy turned her head, and our eyes met. Time stopped. The world tilted on its axis. Her face went white as fresh snow. Then it flushed crimson. Michael followed her gaze, and I watched the blood drain from his face as he saw me standing there, a ghost in my own home. "Alice?" Lucy's voice came out a broken whisper, but I didn't speak. I couldn't speak. The words were trapped somewhere deep in my chest, entangled with the pieces of my heart, which were now scattered across our Persian rug. I simply turned and walked back out the door I had just entered, my legs moving on autopilot as my mind reeled. Behind me, I heard a frantic scramble, Lucy calling my name, Michael cursing as he apparently fell from the sofa. But I kept walking. Down our cobblestone path, past the rose bushes Michael had planted for me last spring, past the mailbox with our names painted in cheerful yellow letters. "Dr. Miller!" Michael's voice was strained. I walked until I reached my car, slid behind the wheel, and drove. Where to? I didn't know. I just drove through our quiet suburban neighborhood with its perfect lawns and white picket fences, past the primary school where children played on the swings, past the coffee shop where Michael and I had our first date 5 years ago. My phone buzzed incessantly in my purse. Message after message, call after call. I didn't need to look to know they were from both of them, probably crafting explanations, begging for forgiveness, swearing it had been a mistake. But some mistakes can't be forgiven. Some betrayals cut too deep for words. As I pulled into the parking lot of the old lighthouse overlooking the harbor, our special spot where Michael had proposed, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of what I had witnessed. The sob that tore from my throat was raw and primal, echoing in the car windows as I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Everything had been stolen from me. My marriage, my family, my trust, my future. Every dream we had built together, every plan we had made, every moment of happiness we had shared, all of it now tainted by their deceit. But as I sat there watching the waves crash against the rocks below, something else began to grow, alongside the pain. Something cold and calculating that felt alien, yet strangely comforting. They thought they knew me, the sweet, forgiving Alice, the one who always saw the best in people, the one who gave second chances, the one who went out of her way to keep the family peace, the dedicated doctor who spent her days healing others, the one who couldn't hurt a fly. They had no idea what they had just awakened. I pulled out my phone and checked the missed calls. 15 from Michael, 12 from Lucy. Their desperation was almost palpable through the screen. Let them sweat. Let them wonder. Let them dread what comes next. Because what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd learned some things during my medical training that had nothing to do with healing. I'd learned about pressure points and psychological warfare, about how to read people's deepest fears, and how to exploit their weaknesses with surgical precision. I'd learned that sometimes the most devastating wounds are the ones that don't bleed. As the sun began to set over the harbor, painting the sky in fiery reds that reminded me of Lucy's hair, I started my car and drove home. Not to forgive or forget, but to begin planning. They wanted to play games with my life. Fine. But they were about to discover that I played by very different rules. Are you enjoying the story? Show it with a like and share so more people can discover this shocking tale. 3 days had passed since what I now referred to as the incident, and I hadn't spoken to either of them. Not a word. My phone had finally stopped its constant buzzing, though an occasional desperate text still trickled through. I'd been staying at the Sovereign Tower Hotel downtown, a place Michael and I had never gone to together. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was hiding in my own city, but I needed space to think, to plan. The hotel room had become my war room. Medical journals lay scattered across the desk, alongside printed emails, bank statements, and legal documents. I had always been organized. It was essential in my profession. But now that skill had taken on a darker purpose. My laptop screen glowed with research tabs, divorce lawyers, private investigators, property law, and various other topics that would have seemed innocuous to anyone, but which were the building blocks of my carefully crafted plan. The knock on my door came at exactly 2:47 p.m. I knew because I'd been expecting it. "Alice, I know you're in there." Michael's voice filtered through the thick hotel door, strained and desperate. "Please, just talk to me. Let me explain." I remained perfectly still on the bed, laptop balanced on my knees, continuing to type notes about asset division, communal property, separate property, how to protect what was mine before the storm hit. "I've been to every hotel in the city. The receptionist downstairs recognized you from the picture I showed her." His voice cracked slightly. "Honey, please, you can't just disappear like this." The endearment that had once sent butterflies through my stomach now made it churn. I saved my document and closed my laptop, but I didn't move towards the door. "Lucy told me she confessed to Robert," Michael continued, referring to Lucy's husband of 3 years. "He threw her out. She's staying at Mom's, crying constantly. Says she's going to lose her mind if you don't talk to her." Good, I thought. Let her suffer. Let her understand what it feels like to have your world crumble. But I said nothing aloud. "Alice, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. What you saw... God, I can't imagine how that felt. But it wasn't what it looked like." I almost laughed at that. The oldest line in the cheating spouse handbook. It was a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake that happened once. Lucy was having problems with Robert and she came to talk. We had some wine, and things just got out of hand. It meant nothing. It was just physical. Meaningless. He was making it worse with every word. I made a clinical note. Not only had he betrayed me, but he was insulting my intelligence by lying about it. They'd moved together with too much familiarity, too much comfort. This hadn't been a one-time slip-up fueled by alcohol and bad judgment. This had been an affair. I love you, Alice. Only you. I've loved you since the day we met at that dreadful medical convention, where the coffee was cold and the speakers were boring, and you made that joke about the anatomical diagram that was upside down. Remember? Yes, I remembered. I also remembered Lucy at that same convention, supposedly supporting my career. Had they met then, too? Had they been behind my back for 5 years? The questions that had gnawed at me for 3 days suddenly crystallized into a plan so perfect, so poetic, that I almost smiled. Please, just open the door. Let me see your face. Let me hold you and fix this. Instead, I reached for my phone and typed a single text message to Michael. Meet me at the Silver Spoon tomorrow at 7 p.m. Come alone. The Silver Spoon was the Italian restaurant where we'd had our first anniversary dinner, where he'd promised me a future as he fed me tiramisu and whispered about the children we'd have someday. My phone buzzed immediately with his reply. Thank God. Yes, I'll be there. I love you. I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled through my contacts until I found Robert Davies, Lucy's soon-to-be ex-husband. We'd always gotten along well at family gatherings. He was a good man, a high school history teacher with a dry sense of humor and a genuine love for my sister that she'd apparently never appreciated. Robert, it's Alice. I know this is awkward given everything that's happened, but I was wondering if we could get coffee sometime this week. I think we need to talk. His reply came faster than I expected. I was hoping you'd get in touch. How about tomorrow afternoon? There are things you need to know about Michael and Lucy, things that go back further than you realize. My blood ran cold reading those words. Further than I realized? How long had this been going on? 3 p.m. at the Parkside Cafe on High Street, I replied. See you there. And Alice, I'm so sorry. For everything. I put the phone aside and returned to my laptop, but my mind was racing. Robert had information I could use. Outside my hotel window, the city shimmered in the late afternoon sun, oblivious to the fact that by this time tomorrow, several lives would have changed forever, including my own. But for the first time, since I'd walked out of my house 3 days ago, I felt something other than devastating pain. I felt purpose. What would you do in Alice's shoes? Leave your opinion in the comments. We want to hear from you. The Parkside Cafe buzzed with its usual late-afternoon crowd of university students and remote workers, their conversations providing a perfect cover for what was about to be a very revealing discussion. I'd chosen a corner table with a clear view of both entrances, a habit I'd developed during residency when I learned to always have an exit strategy. Robert arrived at exactly 3 p.m., looking as if he'd aged a decade since I last saw him at Lucy's birthday party 3 months ago. His brown hair, normally impeccably styled, was disheveled, his clothes rumpled, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. But what struck me most was the way he moved, like a man who'd been hollowed out from within. Alice. He slid into the chair opposite me, and I was surprised by the warmth in his voice despite everything. You look terrible, I said dryly. If I'm honest. He managed a weak smile. Fair enough. The barista approached, and Robert ordered a black coffee. Make it a double, he added. We sat in an awkward silence until his drink arrived. Robert wrapped his hands around the mug, as if grounding himself to reality. How long? I asked without preamble. That's complicated. Robert took a long swallow of coffee, then looked me in the eye. The physical affair, about 8 months from what I've been able to piece together. But, I leaned forward, lowering my voice. They've been emotionally involved for much longer. My stomach clenched. How much longer? Do you remember Lucy's engagement party 4 years ago? I nodded. Michael and I had only been dating for a year then, but he'd been so charming with my family, helping Lucy plan the perfect celebration for her and Robert. Michael offered to help with everything. The flowers, the venue, the menu. Lucy was so grateful. She kept talking about how lucky you were to have such an attentive boyfriend. Robert's laugh was bitter. I thought it was sweet, my future brother-in-law caring so much about making her day special. But it wasn't about making her day special, I said, the pieces clicking into place. No, it was about getting closer to her. I found their old text messages on Lucy's phone last week when I was looking for our insurance information after she left. Messages from years ago, Alice. Compliments that crossed lines. Inside jokes I was never a part of. Late-night conversations that had nothing to do with party planning. The betrayal deepened with each word. For years. They'd been building this connection for 4 years, while I'd been blissfully unaware, planning a life with a man who was slowly falling in love with my sister. Why didn't you say anything sooner? I asked. Robert's face crumpled slightly. Because I loved her. Because she kept telling me I was being paranoid, that the strange tensions I felt were just in my head. Because every time I mentioned Michael, Lucy would get defensive and accuse me of being jealous and controlling. But you knew, deep down? Yes, I knew. The way she'd light up when his name came up in conversation, because that meant Michael's stories would follow. The way she always offered to help you both move, or paint your house, or would organize parties. The way she'd dress differently when she knew she'd see him. I remembered all those occasions, seeing them now through this horrifying new lens. Lucy had been present for everything. Our housewarming party, Michael's birthday celebrations, our anniversary dinners. Always ready to help, always so supportive of our relationship. Always positioning herself right in the middle of our lives. There's more, Robert continued. Last month, when you were at that medical conference in London, Lucy told me she was going for a girls' night out with her university friends, but I drove by your house around midnight, and Michael's car was there. So was Lucy's. The medical conference. I'd been presenting research on trauma treatment, so proud that Michael had encouraged me to go, despite it meaning missing his company picnic. Lucy had texted me all weekend, asking about my presentations, telling me how much she missed our sister time. She'd been lying to me all weekend while sleeping with my husband. I confronted her the next day, Robert said. She swore nothing had happened, that she'd just dropped by to drop something off you'd lent her, and they'd ended up talking late about marriage problems. Marriage problems? My voice was sharp. Robert nodded grimly. According to Lucy, you and Michael had been fighting a lot. You were always working, never home. You didn't appreciate him. She was just being a supportive friend and sister, listening to his concerns about your relationship. The audacity was astounding. They'd been having an affair while simultaneously painting me as the problem in my own marriage. For the record, Robert added softly, I never believed her. Michael always seemed crazy about you. And Lucy, she was projecting. We were the ones having problems, primarily because she was always distracted, always somewhere else mentally, even when she was with me. I pulled out my phone and began typing notes. Robert, I need to ask you something. Go ahead. Do you want revenge on them? He was silent for a long moment, studying my face. What do you have in mind? I'm not sure yet, but I have some ideas forming, and they're going to need both of us working together. Alice. Robert put down his coffee cup. I can see something in your eyes right now that frankly scares me a little. What exactly are you planning? I smiled, and I could feel how cold my smile was. Nothing illegal, nothing that will physically harm anyone. But Michael and Lucy took something from both of us, and I think it's time they faced some consequences. Robert was silent for another long moment. Then, what do you need from me? Information, evidence, and most importantly, I leaned forward. I need you to trust me completely, even when what I ask you to do makes no sense. Can you do that?" He extended his hand across the table. "Partners." I shook it. "Partners." As we exchanged contact information and began planning our next moves, I felt something I hadn't experienced in days. Hope. Not of reconciliation or forgiveness, but of justice. Michael and Lucy thought they'd been so clever, so careful. They'd probably convinced themselves they were the victims here, star-crossed lovers, tragically divided between passion and loyalty. They had no idea their worst nightmare was just beginning, and it was being orchestrated by the two people who knew them best. Comment. If you think Alice is doing the right thing, we'd love to hear your perspective. The silver spoon hadn't changed since our anniversary dinner 2 years ago. The same soft lighting, the same red checkered tablecloths, the same elderly waiter who remembered every customer's favorite dish. I'd arrived 15 minutes early and had taken our usual table by the window, watching for Michael's reflection in the glass as he walked into the restaurant. He looked terrible. His normally impeccable hair was disheveled, his designer shirt wrinkled, and he moved with the uncertain gait of a man walking through a minefield. Good, I thought. Let him suffer every second of uncertainty. "Alice!" He approached the table as if I might bolt at any moment. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." I gestured to the chair opposite me without speaking. Let him feel the silence. Let him reveal more than he intended. Michael sat down heavily. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for mine. I pulled my hands back into my lap. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "You always look beautiful. But tonight, I've missed you so much." I'd spent an hour getting ready, not to look beautiful for him, but to look like the woman he was losing. The red dress he'd bought me for my birthday, the necklace he'd given me for our wedding, a reminder of everything he'd thrown away. "How's Lucy?" I asked. Neutral. Michael flinched. "Alice, I don't want to talk about—" "How is she, Michael?" He swallowed hard. She's staying with your mother. She's devastated. She knows she's destroyed everything and can barely function. She asked me to tell you how sorry she is." "And you? Are you sorry?" "God, yes, Alice. I'm so sorry I can barely breathe. What you saw, what happened, it was the biggest mistake of my life." The same script he'd delivered through my hotel room door. I wondered if he'd practiced it in the mirror. "Tell me about the mistake," I said calmly. As he started, Michael's eyes darted around the restaurant. It didn't start anywhere. It was just that one time. Lucy was upset about Robert, and she came to talk, and we had too much wine and things just happened. First way. Robert had already told me about the 8 months of physical affair, the 4 years of emotional connection. Michael was still lying, still trying to minimize the damage. What kind of problems was Lucy having with Robert? "I don't know. Marriage stuff. She said they just didn't connect anymore, that he didn't understand her." Second lie. Robert had painted a picture of a man desperate to save his marriage, while Lucy drifted away, distracted by her feelings for my husband. Our waiter approached, but I waved him off. This conversation required privacy. "Michael," I said, leaning slightly forward, "I want you to look me in the eye and tell me the truth. How long has this been going on?" He looked me in the eye, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the man I'd fallen in love with, the one who used to be honest with me about everything. 6 weeks, he finally said. "It started about 6 weeks ago, when you were doing those double shifts at the hospital. I was feeling lonely, and Lucy was having problems with Robert, and we just started talking more. It was innocent at first, just friendship. But then..." Third lie. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a screenshot Robert had sent me earlier. A text message from Lucy to Michael dated 3 months ago. "Can't stop thinking about last night. When can we be together again?" I turned the phone so Michael could see the screen. Color drained from his face. "Where did you get that?" Robert found Lucy's old phone in her storage unit when he was packing her things. Apparently, she'd forgotten she'd backed up her messages. A lie, but a convincing one. There are dozens more, Michael, from months ago. I should show you the message where she talks about how much better you are in bed than Robert. Or the message where you two discuss how to gradually end both of your marriages. Michael's hands were visibly trembling now. Alice, can I explain? No. I put the phone away. You can't. You can't explain why you and my sister have been planning to destroy 2 marriages for months. You can't explain why you've been lying to my face every day while sleeping with her. And you certainly can't explain why you're still lying to me right now. I love you, he said desperately. Whatever you think you know, whatever those messages say, the truth is I love you. Only you. Lucy was just... It was an escape from the pressure of our marriage, from work, from everything. She means nothing to me, but I meant something to her, I said quietly. I was her sister, her maid of honor, the person she called when she needed advice or support, or just someone to listen. And you were my husband, the person I trusted most in the world. Tears were streaming down Michael's face now. I know how badly I messed up. But Alice, please, we can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can work through it together. I'll do whatever it takes. I studied his face, memorizing this moment. The desperation, the fear, the growing realization that his carefully constructed lies were crumbling around him. All right, I said softly. All right. Hope flared in his eyes. I'm willing to try, but there have to be conditions. Whatever, just tell me. Tell me. I pulled a folded piece of paper from my purse. I'd had my lawyer draft a post-nuptial agreement. If we're going to work on our marriage, I need some security. Michael unfolded the paper, and I watched his expression shift as he read. The agreement was heavily skewed in my favor. I would retain sole ownership of my medical practice, our joint savings account, and the house we'd bought together. Michael would keep his business and his car, but everything else would be considered separate property from now on. This is pretty extreme, Alice. You destroyed our financial partnership when you started sleeping with my sister. If you want to rebuild trust, you'll have to show you're committed to fixing things. Michael looked at the paper for a long moment. What about Lucy? What will happen to her? You will have no contact with her. Ever. If she attends family events, you don't attend. If she calls you, you hang up. If she shows up at our house, you call the police. 0 contact, complete and total. And if I agree to all this, I extended my hand across the table and took his, letting him see the hope in my eyes. Then we go home tonight, and we start fresh. A clean slate. Michael's relief was palpable. Yes, absolutely. Where do I sign? I handed him a pen, and he signed the post-nuptial agreement without reading the fine print, without noticing the clause that gave me the right to dissolve the marriage and keep everything if he violated the no-contact order, without realizing he had just legally protected me before the real revenge even began. I love you so much, Michael said as he finished signing. I promise you won't regret this. I'm going to spend every day making it up to you. I smiled and squeezed his hand. I'm counting on it. As we walked out of the Silver Spoon together, Michael's arm around my shoulders. As if nothing had happened, my mind was already on phase 2 of my plan. The hardest part was over. I had my husband exactly where I needed him. Now, it was Lucy's turn. Are you ready for the next phase of this plan? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single detail. The text message arrived at 6:42 a.m., just as I was finishing my morning coffee on our back patio. Michael had left early for a business meeting, kissing me goodbye with what he probably thought was convincing tenderness. I'd smiled and kissed him back, playing the role of the forgiving wife perfectly. Alice, please, I know you hate me, but I need to talk to you. I'm losing my mind. Mum won't stop crying, Robert won't return my calls, and Michael won't even look at me. You're the only family I have left. Lucy, right on time. I'd been expecting this text ever since Robert told me she'd been staying with our mother. Mum had always been Lucy's safe place, the one who made excuses for her impulsive behavior and cleaned up her messes. But even Mum's patience had limits, and apparently, sleeping with your sister's husband crossed several of them. I texted back, "Meet me at Regent's Park at 10 a.m. by the pond where we used to feed the ducks as kids." The reply was immediate. "God, Alice, thank you. I'll be there." I spent the next 3 hours preparing. Not physically. This conversation would be raw and emotional, and I needed to look like I'd been crying, like I was barely holding myself together. But mentally, I rehearsed every word, every gesture, every possible response Lucy might have. Regent's Park held decades of memories for us. Birthday parties, family picnics, countless afternoons splashing in the pond while Mum watched from a nearby bench. Lucy had taught me to ride my bike on these paths. I'd helped her practice her graduation speech under the old oak tree by the pavilion. We'd been best friends once, before she grew up beautiful and charming, while I grew up studious and serious. Before she learned she could take anything she wanted, including things that belonged to me. Lucy was already there when I arrived, sitting on our old bench facing the pond. She looked as broken as Robert had described. Her normally impeccable hair was pulled into a messy ponytail. No makeup. In clothes she looked like she'd slept in. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. For a moment, seeing her like that, I felt an echo of the old protective instinct I once had for my little sister. Then I recalled the image of her moving over my husband in our living room, and the feeling vanished. "Alice." Lucy looked up as I approached, her face streaked with tears. "You came?" I sat beside her, leaving space between us, close enough to talk, far enough to maintain distance. "You look awful," I said simply. Lucy let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "I feel worse than I look, if that's possible." She turned to me, and I could see the desperation in her eyes. "Alice, I know I have no right to ask this, but please let me explain." "Explain what? How you seduced my husband? How long you've been sleeping with him? How you lied to my face every day while planning to destroy my marriage?" "It wasn't like that," Lucy said quickly. "It wasn't planned. It just happened? For 8 months?" Lucy's face went white. "How did you know?" "Robert found your old messages. All of them." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the screenshots Robert had shared. "Do you want me to read some of them? Perhaps the one where you tell Michael how much you like the way he says your name during sex? Or the one where you discuss which hotel rooms have the best privacy?" Lucy buried her face in her hands. "Oh God, Robert saw that. Robert saw everything. Every lie you told him. Every excuse you made. Every time you manipulated him into thinking he was the problem in his marriage." I kept my voice quiet and clinical. "By the way, he's filing for divorce. His lawyer says it should be finalized in 6 months. Alice, please, I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I need you to understand." "Understand what?" The anger I'd been carefully controlling finally seeped into my voice. "Understand how my own sister systematically set out to destroy my life? Understand how you pretended to care about my marriage while sabotaging it from within?" "I didn't mean for it to happen." Lucy's voice rose almost to a hysteria. "I came to you and Michael for help when Robert and I started having problems. You were always working, so Michael was the one who listened, who made me feel important. It started as friendship, but then you decided you wanted him for yourself." "I fell in love with him," Lucy whispered. "I tried to fight it. I tried to stay away. But Alice, I've never felt anything like I feel for Michael. He understands me in ways Robert never did." The audacity was astounding. She was asking me to sympathize with her grand love story, a love story that featured my husband as the leading man. "And what about me?" I asked quietly. "Did you think about me at all while you were falling in love with Michael?" Lucy's tears fell harder now. "Every day, God, Alice, thinking about you was torture. I hated myself for what I was feeling, for what we were doing. But I couldn't stop. I tried to end it so many times, but Michael, he felt the same way about me." "So you decided I was the problem. I was the obstacle standing in the way of your happiness, didn't you?" "Yes, I don't know. I told myself that maybe you and Michael weren't really meant for each other. You're so different. You're serious and career-focused, and he's more spontaneous and emotional. I thought that maybe, just maybe, you'd be happier with someone who understood your priorities better." "How convenient," I said. "You get to keep my husband, and I get to console myself with the idea that I deserved better anyway." "Alice, I'm trying to be honest with you about how I felt, how I justified what I was doing. I know it was wrong. I know I hurt you in the worst way possible, but I need you to know I never meant to hurt you." I turned to face her directly. "Lucy, I need you to listen to me very carefully. You didn't just hurt me. You didn't just betray me. You systematically dismantled my life while pretending to be my loving sister. You manipulated Michael. You lied to Robert. You deceived our entire family. And now you're sitting here asking me to understand and forgive you because you fell in love." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Lucy said quickly. "I know I don't deserve it. I'm just asking for a chance to somehow make things right." "There's no making this right." Lucy's face crumpled. "So now what? I lose everything? My marriage, my sister, my family. I lose everything because I made a terrible mistake." I almost laughed at her phrasing. A mistake. As if 8 months of calculated deceit could be reduced to a single moment of poor judgment. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice taking on the tone I used with difficult patience. "You are going to stay away from Michael. Completely. No calls, no texts, no showing up at his office or our house. If you see him at family events, you pretend he doesn't exist." "Alice!" she wailed. "I'm not finished. You are going to go to therapy. Real therapy. Not just someone to validate your feelings. You are going to figure out why you thought it was okay to destroy your sister's marriage. And you are going to work on becoming the kind of person who would never do something like this again." Lucy nodded eagerly. "Yes, absolutely. I'll do whatever you want." "And finally, you're going to wait. You're going to wait while Michael and I decide if our marriage can survive what you two did to it. You're not going to know the outcome. You're not going to get updates. You're not going to interfere or offer opinions or try to fix things. You will wait, and you will hope that someday, years from now, I might be able to look at you without seeing the worst betrayal of my life." "How long?" Lucy whispered. "I don't know. Maybe forever." We sat in silence for several minutes, watching the ducks glide across the pond. Finally, Lucy spoke. "Just so you know, Michael chose you. When you came home that day and caught us, he made it clear that what we had was over. He said he was confused, that he loved you, and he wanted to save your marriage. He broke my heart to try and save yours." Interesting. Michael had told me the affair was meaningless, just physical. But according to Lucy, he was confused about his feelings, which suggested something deeper. Another lie from my beloved husband. "Lucy," I said as I stood to leave, "I need you to understand something. This conversation, this attempt at reconciliation, isn't for you. It's for me. I needed to look you in the eye and hear you try to justify what you did. I needed to see if there was any part of my sister left in you, if you had completely turned into someone I don't recognize." And her voice was barely audible. I got my answer. I walked away without looking back, leaving Lucy alone on the bench where we'd spent so many happy afternoons as children. Behind me, I could hear her sobbing, but I felt no urge to comfort her. Phase 2 was complete. Lucy was isolated, guilt-ridden, and completely cut off from Michael. Now she would stew in that misery, wondering if she'd lost everything for a man who had ultimately chosen his wife. But the true masterpiece was yet to come. Because while Lucy thought Michael had chosen me, and while Michael thought I was willing to rebuild our marriage, neither of them understood the true nature of my plan. They were both about to discover that some games have rules only one player knows. Do you think Michael truly loves Alice, or is this all part of her plan? We want to know your theory. Leave your comment. 3 weeks after our reconciliation, Michael had settled into the role of the contrite husband with surprising dedication. He brought me coffee in bed every morning, left love notes in my medical bag, and planned romantic dinners that felt like elaborate apologies. To anyone watching us, we looked like a couple working through their issues with maturity and commitment. The act was exhausting. Dr. Miller, my nurse, Angela, poked her head into my consulting room, where I was reviewing patient files. "Your husband's here with flowers. Shall I send him in?" I glanced at the clock. 2:30 p.m., right on time. Michael had been surprising me at work every few days, always with some grand gesture designed to show my colleagues how devoted he was to making our marriage work. "Send him in," I said, quickly minimizing the browser window where I'd been researching property law. Michael walked in carrying a bouquet of white roses, my supposed favorites, though I'd always preferred daisies. He'd forgotten so many small details about me over the years, too busy paying attention to Lucy's preferences instead. "Hello, beautiful." He leaned in to kiss my cheek, and I forced myself not to recoil. "I was in the neighborhood and thought you might need something to brighten your day after that difficult case this morning." The Mrs. Rodriguez follow-up appointment. Michael had actually been listening when I mentioned it at breakfast, which was more attention than he'd paid to my work in months. "They're lovely," I said, accepting the flowers. "But you didn't need to cross town just for this." "I wanted to. I want to show you every day how much you mean to me." His voice had that sincere tone that had once felt endearing, and which I now recognized as manipulation. "Besides, I have news." "Oh?" Michael pulled up a chair, settling in as if he planned to stay a while. "The Morrison Group called me. They want to offer me a partner position at their Manchester office." My blood ran cold, but I kept my expression neutral. "Manchester? That's a big move. It would be perfect for us, Alice. A fresh start, away from all the memories and complications here. We could buy a house by the water, and you could find a position at one of the hospitals there. Maybe even take some time off to focus on starting our family." Starting our family. We'd talked about having children for years, but I'd always wanted to wait until my practice was more established. Now I understood why Michael had suddenly become so enthusiastic about the idea. It would permanently tie me to him and give him an excuse to move us far away from Lucy. "Sounds like a wonderful opportunity," I said cautiously. "When would this start?" "They'd want me there by the end of next month. I know it's fast, but Alice, this could be exactly what we need. A chance to rebuild in a new place. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Without Lucy. Without Robert. Without reminders of their betrayal." Michael had found the perfect solution. Erase all evidence of his affair and start fresh with a wife who had already proven she was willing to forgive him. "I'll think about it," I said. Michael's face fell slightly. "I was hoping you'd be more excited. This is a big career opportunity for me, and it would solve so many of our problems. Our problems." I put down my pen and looked at him directly. "I thought we were solving our problems here." "We are, but—" Michael ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd come to recognize. "It's hard, Alice, being in the same city as Lucy, knowing she's suffering because of what happened between us. Sometimes I see her car when I'm driving around town, and I just feel terrible about the pain I caused her. There it was, the truth, slipping out despite his careful facade. Michael didn't want to move to Manchester for our marriage. He wanted to escape the guilt of seeing Lucy suffer. You feel terrible about the pain you caused her, I repeated slowly. Yes, well, I feel terrible about the pain I caused everyone. Michael leaned forward, reaching for my hands. But especially you. You're the one I hurt the most, and you're the one I love. That's why this move would be so good for us. I allowed him to take my hands, noting how his touch no longer produced any flutter of attraction. Michael, can I ask you something? Anything. When you were with Lucy, did you ever think about leaving me for her? The question caught him off guard. I watched his careful composure crumble as he struggled to find the right answer. That's not important now, he finally said. It's important to me. Michael was silent for a long moment, his thumbs tracing circles on my knuckles. There were times when I felt confused about my feelings. Lucy and I connected in ways that felt intense, but I never seriously considered leaving you. Our marriage, our life together, that always meant more to me than anything I felt for her. Another lie. Robert had shown me text messages where Michael and Lucy discussed their future together, including detailed plans on how to gradually break up with their respective spouses without causing too much drama. And now? I asked. Do you still have feelings for her? No. Michael's answer was too quick. What I felt for Lucy was an infatuation, perhaps some kind of midlife crisis. But what I feel for you is real love, the kind that lasts. I released my hands and stood, moving to the window, from which I could see the parking lot. Michael's BMW was parked next to my Honda, looking sleek and expensive, and completely out of place among my patient's modest cars. I need time to think about Manchester, I said. Without turning around, of course, take all the time you need. Michael rose and came behind me, his hands resting on my shoulders. I just want you to know that wherever we go, whatever we do, my priority is earning your trust back. I leaned into him, letting him think I accepted his comfort. I know, I whispered, but as Michael held me, neither of us spoke. I was calculating timelines and possibilities. Manchester would significantly complicate my plans, but it wouldn't derail them. If anything, Michael's desperation to escape the consequences of his actions would make the final phase even more devastating. After Michael left, I pulled out my phone and called Robert. Alice, how's the performance going? He wants to move us to Manchester. New job, fresh start, the whole package. Robert was silent for a moment. That's actually perfect, you know, because Lucy's been talking about following him. She's convinced that if she can get Michael alone, away from you and all the guilt, she can win him back. Did she tell you this? She's been leaving me voicemails, trying to convince me to help her get Michael back so we can both move on with our lives. Apparently, she's been researching job opportunities in Manchester. I smiled, though Robert couldn't see it. Interesting. And what did you tell her? That she's delusional if she thinks I'd help her pursue your husband. But Alice, if she follows them to Manchester, then she'll be playing right into your hands. Exactly, I finished. Robert, I need you to do something for me. It's going to sound strange, but trust me. What do you need? I need you to encourage her. Excuse me? Tell Lucy that maybe she's right. That maybe Michael only chose me because we caught them. And that maybe, if she could get him alone somewhere new, she'd have a real shot with him. Robert was silent for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Alice, what exactly are you planning? Justice, I said simply, for both of us. That night, I found Michael in his study, laptop open, presumably researching Manchester neighborhoods. He looked up when I walked in, hope lighting his features. I've been thinking about your job offer, I said, settling into the chair opposite his desk. And I think you're right. A fresh start might be exactly what we need. I watched relief flood his face. When do we need to give them an answer? Michael rose from his chair and pulled me into his arms before I could blink. Really? You mean it? I mean it, I said, allowing myself to be embraced. But I have one condition. Name it. I want us to renew our wedding vows before we move. Something small and private. Just us and a few close family members. I want to publicly recommit to our marriage before we start this new chapter. Michael pulled back to look at me, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Alice, that's perfect. Yes, absolutely, yes. Good, I said, reaching up to touch his face. Because I want everyone to see how much we love each other. I want them to witness our commitment to making this work. What I didn't tell Michael was that I also wanted everyone to witness what would happen when that commitment inevitably broke. Because Phase 3 of my plan was about to begin, and it required an audience. What unexpected twist do you think the vow renewal will hold? Leave your predictions in the comments. The invitations for the vow renewal were works of art. Cream cardstock with gold embossing, carefully worded to convey both celebration and redemption. Michael had insisted on the best of everything. The venue, the flowers, the photographer. He wanted our reaffirmation ceremony to be a public declaration that our marriage had survived its biggest test. He had no idea it would actually be a funeral. They're beautiful. Angela, my nurse, poked her head into my office as I examined one of the invitations I'd brought in. Though I have to say, after everything that happened with your sister, doing a vow renewal seems incredibly brave. Or incredibly stupid, I replied, sealing another envelope. Time will tell. The guest list had been carefully curated. Our parents, a few close friends, Michael's business partners, some hospital colleagues, and after much deliberation, Lucy and Robert. Michael had protested including them. Alice, I don't think that's wise. It might be too painful, too complicated. Their family, I'd insisted. If we're truly starting fresh, if we've truly forgiven and moved on, then we shouldn't be afraid to have them there. But Lucy might be uncomfortable. Let Lucy decide what she can handle. I'm extending the invitation. What she does with it is up to her. The truth was, I needed Lucy there. The entire plan depended on her attendance, on her seeing Michael publicly commit to me while she sat in the audience, knowing she had lost him forever. Robert had done his job perfectly. According to his reports, Lucy was now convinced that following us to Manchester was her only chance to win Michael back. She'd even started applying for jobs there, telling Robert to his face that she was going to fight for the love of her life. The delusion was astounding, but it served my purposes perfectly. 2 weeks before the ceremony, I received a call from Lucy. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Alice, her voice was shaky, uncertain. I got your invitation. I want to come. I know it sounds crazy, but I want to be there to support you and Michael, to show that I respect your marriage and that I'm truly happy you're working things out. The act was almost convincing. Almost. Are you sure that's wise? I asked. It might be painful for you, but I've been going to therapy, like you suggested. Dr. Hayes says facing difficult situations head-on is part of my healing process. Besides, you're my sister. If you can be generous enough to invite me, I can be strong enough to attend. Dr. Hayes. I made a mental note to investigate Lucy's therapist. I wondered if she was being honest about her progress, or just learning to lie more convincingly. And Robert? I asked. He's not coming. He thinks it would be too awkward, and frankly, I agree. This should be about you and Michael, not about our failed marriage. Perfect. Lucy would be there, alone, vulnerable and isolated, watching the man she thought she loved swear his eternal devotion to me. I'll see you there, I said simply. Alice. Lucy's voice broke. Thank you for including me, for giving me a chance to show I can be the sister you deserve. It means everything to me. After hanging up, I sat in my office for a long time, looking out at the city where I'd built my life and my career. In 2 weeks, I would stand in front of everyone who mattered to me and promise to love, honor, and cherish a man who had betrayed me in the deepest way possible. And then I would keep that promise for exactly as long as it suited me. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. "Lucy's definitely planning on following you to Manchester. She's been looking at apartments online, and she has 3 job interviews scheduled. She's convinced that once you and Michael are away from all the negative influences here, he'll realize he made a mistake choosing you." I texted back, "Perfect, how's your end going?" "Everything's in place, the evidence is compiled, the timeline is documented, and I've made sure certain people will be in the right place at the right time. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "I've never been surer of anything in my life." "Then God help them both." The morning of the ceremony dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect spring day that made everything feel like a fairy tale. Michael had been up since dawn, nervous energy radiating from him as he double-checked every detail. "The flowers arrived an hour ago," he announced, bringing me coffee in bed. "They're perfect. Everything's perfect." I sat up, accepting the mug and studying his face. He looked genuinely happy for the first time in months, like a man who'd been given an unexpected second chance at paradise. "Are you nervous?" I asked. "Terrified," Michael admitted, sitting on the edge of the bed. "What if I mess up my vows? What if people think this is all just a show?" "It's not a show." I silenced him with a kiss, tasting the desperation beneath his anxiety. "Michael, today is about us, about our commitment to each other. Nothing else matters. I love you so much," he whispered against my lips. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it to you." "I know," I said softly. And he would, just not in the way he imagined. 3 hours later, I stood in the bridal suite at the Riverside Gardens, the same venue where we'd held our original wedding 5 years ago. My mother fluttered around me, adjusting my dress and nervously chattering about the guest list. "I still can't believe you invited Lucy," she said for the 3rd time. "After what she did?" "She's my sister, Mom, and she's getting help," I said. "Dr. Hayes can say whatever she wants. That girl destroyed your marriage and almost ruined our entire family. The fact that you're generous enough to include her today just shows what a much better person you are than she is." Through the window, I could see guests arriving. Michael's parents, looking distinguished and slightly uncomfortable. My hospital colleagues, dressed in their finest and likely gossiping about the circumstances that had led to this renewal. A few neighbors who were friends with both couples and who, no doubt, were curious about the drama. And there, stepping out of a taxi in a perfectly hugging navy blue dress, was Lucy. She looked beautiful, as always, but there was something different about her today. A determination in her shoulders, a calculated precision in her movements. This was not the broken, remorseful woman who'd cried by the pond 3 weeks ago. This was a woman with a plan, which was perfect, because so did I. "It's time," Angela announced from the doorway. "The ceremony's about to begin." I took one last look in the mirror, smoothing the silk of my white gown. Not a wedding dress, but something elegant and symbolic. The woman staring back at me was calm, serene, ready for what was to come. "Let's go," I said. As we walked towards the ceremony space, I glimpsed Michael standing at the altar, handsome in his dark suit, looking like every woman's dream of the perfect husband. The same man who'd held me through my mother's illness, who'd encouraged my career, who'd promised me a future on a day much like this 5 years ago. The same man who'd been planning to leave me for my sister, while pretending to work on our marriage. The officiant, a family friend who'd known us for years, smiled warmly as I approached. "Dear ones, we are gathered here today to witness Michael and Alice as they renew their marriage vows and reaffirm their sacred union. I found Lucy among the small crowd, sitting in the third row, tears already streaming down her face. She was looking at Michael with unvarnished longing, probably imagining herself in my place, probably convinced that after the ceremony, she'd find a way to pull him aside and confess her love to him once more. Michael took my hands, his voice strong and clear as he began the vows we'd written together. Alice, 5 years ago I promised to love you through good times and bad, in sickness and in health, in richness and in poverty. I broke those promises, and I hurt you in ways words cannot express. But today, standing here before our family and friends, I want to make those promises again, with a deeper understanding of what they mean. Beautiful words, carefully crafted, emotionally resonant, designed to convince everyone present that Michael Miller was a changed man who had learned from his mistakes. If only they knew what I had learned about his mistakes. If only they knew what was coming next. As Michael finished his vows and the officiant turned to me, I met Robert's gaze in the back row. He gave me an almost imperceptible nod. Everything was in place. Alice, the officiant prompted gently. Your vows. I turned to face Michael, looking deep into his eyes as I began to speak. Michael, I said, my voice clear for all the assembled guests. 5 years ago, I married a man I thought I knew completely. A man I trusted with my heart, my future, and my deepest secrets. Michael smiled, thinking he knew where this was going. He had no idea. I believed in us, I continued, never breaking eye contact with Michael. I believed in the promises we made, in the life we were building together, in the love we shared, even when things got hard, even when we grew distant. I never doubted that we were committed to working through our problems together. Michael's smile faltered slightly. This wasn't matching the vows we'd rehearsed. But 5 years of marriage taught me something important about trust, I said, my voice still calm and clear. It taught me that trust isn't just about believing someone when they tell you they love you. It's about believing they'll respect you enough to tell you the truth, even when the truth is painful. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was definitely not a traditional renewal ceremony. Michael, I want to renew my vows with you today, but I want to base them on truth rather than fantasy. So let me tell you what I've learned about our marriage in the past few weeks. Michael's face had gone pale. Alice, what are you? I've learned that you've been having an affair with my sister Lucy for 8 months. My voice remained steady, conversational, as if I were discussing the weather. I've learned that you've been planning to leave me for her, and that both of you have been manipulating your respective spouses to make that transition as seamless as possible. Gasps and murmurs erupted in the audience. Michael's mother made a sound as if she'd been slapped. Lucy stood up, her face white with panic. Alice, stop, Michael said desperately. This isn't the time or the place. Actually, this is the perfect time and place, I said, finally turning to address our guests. Because all of you are here believing that Michael and I have worked through our problems, that we've forgiven each other and moved on. You're here to celebrate our renewed commitment to honesty and trust. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Robert, could you come up here, please? Robert rose from the back row and walked towards the altar, his expression grim but determined. Several guests recognized him as Lucy's husband and began whispering more urgently. Robert has been instrumental in helping me document the true nature of Michael and Lucy's relationship, I continued. Show them, Robert. Robert connected his phone to the venue's sound system, a detail we'd arranged beforehand. The first image that flashed on the large screen behind the altar was a text message thread between Michael and Lucy, dated 6 weeks ago. Michael, I can't keep pretending with Alice. Every day feels like a lie. Lucy, I know, baby, but we have to be smart about this. Robert's already suspicious. And if Alice finds out before we're ready, Michael, ready for what? To destroy 2 marriages, to tear your family apart? Lucy, Michael, ready to be together, really together. Isn't that what we both want? The messages continued, showing Michael and Lucy planning their future, while discussing how to gradually break away from their spouses. Hotel bookings, apartment searches in Manchester, detailed timelines for ending both marriages. Michael lunged for Robert's phone, but I grabbed his arm. Let them see everything, Michael. Let them see what our marriage was really like while you were planning your escape strategy. This is insane, Lucy shrieked from the audience. Alice, you're having some kind of breakdown. Michael chose you. He ended things with me to save your marriage. Did he? I asked, signaling Robert to advance to the next set of messages. These were from just 2 days ago, after Michael had supposedly recommitted to our reconciliation. Lucy, Michael, I can't stop thinking about you, about us. Michael, Lucy, I know. God, I know. But Alice is finally trusting me again. If I blow it now... Lucy, so you're just going to give up on us? On what we have? Michael, Lucy, I'm not giving up. I'm being strategic. Once we're in Manchester, once she's settled and comfortable, we can figure out how to make this work. Lucy, Michael, promise me. Promise me you're not choosing her over me, Michael. Lucy, I promise. It's you I want, Lucy. It's you I love. This is just temporary. The silence in the venue was deafening. Michael stood motionless beside me, his face a mask of horror as the full extent of what I had uncovered sank in. That text conversation continued until yesterday, I said conversationally, until Michael was texting Lucy about how much he looked forward to their new beginning in Manchester. I turned to Michael, whose hands were visibly trembling now. So let me ask you again, Michael. Do you want to renew our vows? Do you want to promise to love, honor, and cherish me while planning your life with my sister, Alice? Michael's voice was barely a whisper. I can explain. Those texts don't mean what you think. They mean exactly what I think, I said firmly. They mean you've been lying to me every day since I caught you with Lucy. They mean every romantic gesture, every apology, every promise you've made has been a calculated manipulation, designed to keep me complacent while you planned your escape. I turned back to face the guests. I brought you all here today because I wanted witnesses. I wanted you to see what betrayal truly looks like. And I wanted you to understand that some marriages can't be saved, because one person never intended to save them. Michael suddenly sprang to life, grabbing my shoulders and trying to pull me away from our audience. Stop this! Stop this right now! We can talk about this in private. Work it out like adults. Adults? I laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. Adults don't plan elaborate deceptions. Adults don't gaslight their spouses while arranging affairs. Adults don't stand at altars promising a future while texting other women about their real future plans. I twisted out of his grasp and looked at him with all the contempt I'd been hiding for weeks. Michael, I want a divorce. I want you out of our house by the end of the week. And I want you to understand that every single person in this room now knows exactly what kind of man you are. Alice, please! Lucy shrieked, pushing her way through the crowd towards the altar. You don't understand. Michael and I tried to fight our feelings, but sometimes love just happens. It doesn't mean we're terrible people. Actually, it does, Robert interrupted, advancing to the next screen of evidence. Because you didn't just have an affair, Lucy. You systematically destroyed your marriage to me and Alice's by lying, manipulating, and betraying everyone who trusted you. The new images showed Lucy's research into Alice's work schedule, Michael's business trips, and Robert's therapy appointments. She'd been tracking everyone's movements to create opportunities for her affair, while minimizing the risk of being discovered. You studied us, I said, looking at Lucy with disgust. You studied our lives like a predator studies its prey, looking for weaknesses you could exploit. That's not, Lucy began. You convinced Robert he was imagining things when he suspected the affair. You told him he needed therapy for his paranoia, while you slept with my husband in our bed. You made him doubt his own sanity to protect your lies. Robert stepped forward, his voice resonating in the silent venue. Lucy told me I was becoming controlling and jealous. She convinced me to start taking anxiety medication because my unfounded suspicions were hurting our marriage. She made me believe I was the problem while she planned to leave me for Michael. The cruelty was breathtaking, and I could see it registering on the faces of our guests. This wasn't a simple case of two people falling in love despite their circumstances. This was psychological warfare waged against the people who had loved and trusted them most. So no, I said, pulling off my wedding ring and dropping it onto the altar. I will not renew my vows today. I will not move to Manchester, and I will not pretend this marriage can be saved by a man who never intended to save it. Michael stood there, lost and desperate, probably trying to calculate if there was any way to spin this situation in his favor. Lucy had sunk into a nearby chair, her face buried in her hands, as the full scope of her exposure sank in. One more thing, I added, pulling a manila envelope from my purse. Michael, these are the divorce papers. I'm filing for divorce on the grounds of adultery, and thanks to the post-nuptial agreement you signed, I'll be keeping the house, the practice, and most of our savings. You can keep your business and your car, and you're welcome to start your new life with Lucy using whatever you have left. I handed him the papers. Then I turned to address the crowd one last time. Thank you all for coming today. I know this isn't the ceremony you expected, but I hope it's been educational. There's champagne and cake in the reception hall if anyone's interested in staying. Consider it a celebration of truth, justice, and the end of a marriage that should have ended months ago. As I walked down the aisle, leaving Michael alone at the altar, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Freedom. The weight of pretense, of acting, of trying to save something that had never been worth saving, lifted from my shoulders. Behind me, I could hear chaos erupting as guests processed what they had witnessed. Shocked conversations, angry accusations, the sound of someone sobbing. Probably Lucy, but I didn't look back. I had one more stop to make before this was truly over. Don't miss the next video to find out the shocking conclusion to this revenge story. Do you think Alice will find true happiness? Subscribe to find out. I found Lucy in the parking lot 20 minutes later, slumped against her car and sobbing into her phone. She was talking to someone in desperate, pleading tones, likely trying to find a friend or family member to comfort her after what had just transpired. She ended the call when she saw me approaching. "Alice?" she said, wiping her eyes. "I know you hate me right now, but please let me explain." "Lucy, there's nothing to explain," I said calmly. "Everything's out in the open now. Everyone knows what you and Michael did, how you did it, and how long you've been planning it. There are no more secrets to keep." Lucy straightened up, and I saw a flicker of something replace the tears in her eyes. "You humiliated us in front of everyone. You could have handled this privately, but instead, you chose to publicly destroy us." "I chose to publicly tell the truth. If that destroyed you, it's because your actions were destructive, not because my revelation was inappropriate." "Michael loves me," Lucy said desperately. "I know you showed those texts, but you don't understand the context. We were trying to do the right thing, trying to end our marriages without hurting anyone." The delusion was so complete it was almost impressive. Lucy had convinced herself that her elaborate deception had been an act of kindness rather than manipulation. "Lucy," I said softly, "I need you to understand something. Michael doesn't love you." "Yes, he does. You saw the text." "I saw texts from a man keeping his options open. Michael was never going to leave me for you. He was going to use you for as long as it was convenient. Then he'd find a way to keep both of us in his life. Lucy shook her head violently. That's not true. He told me he loved me. He said I was the one he wanted. He told you what you needed to hear to keep sleeping with him. Just as he told me what I needed to hear to keep supporting him financially and socially. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a message thread I hadn't shown the wedding guests. Would you like to see what Michael really thinks of you? The messages were between Michael and his business partner, Mark, dated 2 weeks ago. Mark: So, how's the situation with your wife and her sister going? Michael: Complicated. Alice is being surprisingly forgiving, which is great for my image and my finances. Lucy is convinced I'm going to leave Alice for her, which keeps her quiet about the affair. Mark: And what are you actually going to do? Michael: Play it smart. Keep Alice happy until Manchester is sorted, then phase Lucy out gradually. I can't afford a messy divorce right now, and Lucy's too unstable for a serious relationship anyway. Mark: Cold, man. Michael: Practical. Alice is the better long-term investment. Established career, family money, social connections. Lucy's great for fun, but she's not wife material. Lucy read the messages twice, her face paling with each word. He said I wasn't wife material? She whispered. He said I was unstable? The full reality finally hitting her. He was planning to use our reconciliation to secure his financial future, then abandon you once he no longer needed you to keep quiet? Lucy slumped against her car, the complete reality finally hitting her. But he promised me. He said we'd be together in Manchester. He lied to you, the same way he lied to me. The difference is, I found out before I destroyed my life completely. For several minutes, we remained silent. Lucy processed the magnitude of her situation, while I watched her world crumble in real time. So what happens now? She finally asked. Now you face the consequences of your choices. Robert is filing for divorce. Michael will likely try to blame everything on you to save his reputation. Your family knows what you did. Your friends were at that ceremony and saw the evidence. You'll have to rebuild your entire life from scratch. And you? Lucy looked at me with reddened eyes. I get everything I want. I get justice. I get freedom from a marriage built on lies. I get to keep the life I worked hard to build, instead of watching Michael steal it piece by piece. I paused, considering my next words carefully. But I don't get my sister back. I can't trust family the way I used to. I can't believe in forever anymore. Lucy's face crumpled. Alice, I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know I never meant for this to go this far. I never meant to hurt you like this. But you did hurt me like this. And when you had opportunities to stop, to tell the truth, to minimize the damage, you chose to lie deeper and hurt me more. I softened my voice slightly. Lucy, I hope you get help. Real help. I hope you figure out why you thought it was okay to destroy your family for a man who saw you as disposable. I hope you become someone better than you've been. Does that mean someday we could maybe... I don't know, I said. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at you and not see this betrayal, but I hope for your sake that you become someone worthy of forgiveness, even if I can yow and never give it. Lucy felt tears streaming down her face again. I love you, Alice. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I love you. I love you too, I admitted. That's why this hurts so much. I turned to walk away. Then I stopped. Lucy, the therapist you mentioned. Dr. Hayes. What about her? What about her? I called her office yesterday. There's no Dr. Hayes practicing in this city. Never has been. Lucy's face went white. One more lie, I said sadly. Even when you were trying to convince me you were getting help, you were still lying. I left her there, standing in the parking lot, and walked to my car, feeling strangely empty. The revenge was complete. The truth had been revealed, and justice had been served. Michael would lose his reputation, his marriage, and most of his assets. Lucy would lose her family, her marriage, and her social standing. But as I drove away from the Riverside Gardens, I realized that revenge, however perfectly executed, couldn't give me back what I had truly lost. It couldn't give me back the ability to fully trust. It couldn't give me back the sister I had lost, or the marriage I had believed in. But as I pulled into my garage now, thanks to the post-nuptial agreement, I realized that perhaps that was okay. Perhaps some losses were meant to teach us who we truly were beneath all our assumptions about love, loyalty, and family. Perhaps some betrayals were meant to set us free. Thank you for sticking with us. Do you think Alice found true peace? Comment on what you thought of the ending of this intense story. The morning sun filtered through the windows of my freshly redecorated living room as I sipped coffee and reviewed patient files for the day. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, despite the painful memories it held. I'd kept the good pieces and replaced everything that reminded me of Michael and Lucy. The cream sofa where I'd found them was gone, replaced by a blue velvet couch that was entirely my own. The wedding photos had been taken down and replaced by photos of my medical school graduation, my accomplishments, my friends. The rose bushes Michael had planted had been dug up and replaced with a garden I'd designed myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. "Coffee this afternoon. I have news." "Good news or bad news?" I replied. "Depends on your perspective. Lucy's engagement announcement went public this morning." I almost choked on my coffee. "Engagement to whom?" "Some guy she met in Edinburgh. Apparently she moved there after the Manchester job fell through. They've been dating for 3 months." 3 months. Lucy had managed to find another relationship in the time most people take to process major life trauma. Some patterns never changed. "How do you feel about it?" I texted him, relieved. "Honestly, means she's officially someone else's problem now." I laughed in spite of myself. Robert had developed a dark sense of humor since our divorce proceedings began. It suited him. "Coffee at 3, Parkside Cafe? Perfect. See you there." I put down my phone and continued reviewing my files, but my mind drifted to the events of the last 6 months. The divorce had been finalized in 8 weeks, thanks to Michael's eagerness to avoid further public scrutiny. He'd tried to contest the post-nuptial agreement, but the evidence of his continued affair planning had made his position untenable. He'd moved to Manchester alone, taking the job he'd thought would be our fresh start. According to mutual friends, he was struggling professionally and personally. His reputation had followed him across the country, and the Morrison Group, reports said, was reconsidering their partnership offer. Lucy had tried to follow him, just as Robert and I had predicted. But Michael, faced with the reality of public exposure and professional consequences, had made it clear their relationship was over. She'd spent 2 weeks in Manchester trying to convince him otherwise, before finally accepting that he'd meant what he'd said in those messages to his business partner. She'd never been wife material to him. She'd been a convenient distraction that had become an inconvenient burden. The irony was perfect. My medical practice had flourished in the months following the ceremony. Far from harming my reputation, the revelation of Michael's betrayal had garnered sympathy and respect from my colleagues and patients. They saw me as someone who had handled an impossible situation with dignity and intelligence. I'd been invited to speak at conferences on resilience in the medical profession, and my patient load had increased as word spread about my approach to healing trauma. It turned out that surviving betrayal publicly had made me more relatable and trustworthy. Not less. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I'd grown cautious of unexpected visitors since the ceremony. Too many reporters and curious neighbors had tried to snag interviews immediately afterward. Through the peephole, I saw a delivery driver holding a large bouquet of flowers. I opened the door warily. "Dr. Miller? Oh, yes, these are for you." He handed me the bouquet and waited as I signed for it. After he left, I examined the flowers. White daisies mixed with yellow roses. My actual favorite combination. The card was simple. For a fresh start, a friend. No signature. No return address. I searched the bouquet for clues but found nothing. As I arranged the flowers in a vase, I found myself smiling for the first time in weeks. Someone, perhaps Robert, perhaps one of my colleagues, perhaps even a grateful patient. They'd thought to brighten my day with flowers that actually reflected my preferences. It was a small gesture, but it felt significant. After months of being defined by betrayal and revenge, someone saw me as worthy of simple kindness. My phone rang, showing an unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Dr. Miller, this is Jennifer Adams from Edinburgh General Hospital. I know this is unexpected, but we have an open position in our trauma department, and your name came highly recommended." My phone almost slipped from my hand. "Excuse me, who recommended me?" "Actually, it was Dr. Hayes. She attended your presentation at the medical conference last month and was very impressed with your work." Dr. Hayes, the therapist Lucy had claimed to be seeing and who didn't exist in our city. Apparently, she did exist in Edinburgh. "Dr. Hayes suggested you might be interested in a change of scenery," Jennifer continued. "We're looking for someone with your experience in trauma recovery, and frankly, we're willing to offer a very competitive package to get the right person." I looked around my newly decorated living room, thinking about the life I'd rebuilt here, and the memories, both good and bad, that tied me to this place. "Can you send me the details?" I heard myself say. "I'd like to review the position." "Absolutely. I'll email everything to you this afternoon." After hanging up, I sat in the quiet of my home, considering the possibility of starting fresh somewhere new, not running away from my past, but choosing my future on my own terms. The irony wasn't lost on me. Michael had wanted to take me to Manchester as part of his escape plan, his fresh start built on deceit. Now I was being offered the chance to go there on my own merit, with my own goals, carrying my own truth. That afternoon, I met Robert at the Parkside Cafe, the same corner table where we'd first planned our investigation 6 months ago. "You look different," he said, as he sat down. Different in a good way. Peaceful. "I got a job offer today, in Edinburgh." Robert's eyebrows shot up. "Edinburgh? That's ironic." "Yes, but also potentially perfect." I told him about Jennifer Adams's call, about Dr. Hayes's recommendation, about the opportunity to build something completely new. "What about your practice here?" "I could sell it to Dr. Collins. She's been wanting to expand, and she understands my patient load. They'd be in good hands." Robert was silent for a moment, processing. "Are you running away?" "No," I said without hesitation. 6 months ago I would have been. But this isn't about escaping what happened here. It's about choosing what comes next. "What about Michael?" "He's still in Manchester, presumably. Manchester is a big city. And even if we cross paths, what's he going to do? He's the one who destroyed our marriage. He's the one who has to live with the consequences of his choices. I'm not going to limit my opportunities because of his presence." Robert smiled. "You really have changed." "We both have. 6 months ago, we were both victims of other people's choices. Now, we're making our own." Speaking of choices, Robert pulled out his phone and showed me a picture. "I've been dating someone." The photo showed Robert with a woman our age, both laughing at something off camera. She had kind eyes and a genuine smile, and Robert looked happier than I'd seen him in years. "Her name's Anna. She's a librarian at the high school where I teach. Never been married. No interest in drama. And she thinks my ex-wife sounds like a sociopath. I like her already." She wants to meet you before you move halfway across the country. Says anyone who helped me survive winter deserves her respect and gratitude. We talked for another hour about new beginnings, about the strange ways life could surprise you, about the difference between healing and revenge. As I drove home, I thought about the flowers waiting on my kitchen table, about the job offer that represented possibility instead of escape, about Robert's new relationship and the peace I'd found in solitude. Michael and Lucy had believed they were writing the story of my life when they chose to betray me. They'd cast me in the role of obstacle to their happiness, the problem to be solved, the victim of their grand love story. But they'd forgotten that I was the protagonist of my own story, and protagonists don't stay defeated. They adapt, they overcome, and they write their own endings. 3 weeks later, I accepted the position at Edinburgh General Hospital, not because I was running from my past, but because I was running toward my future. As I packed my last belongings, I found the manila envelope that had held Michael's divorce papers. Inside, tucked behind the legal documents, was the handwritten letter I'd written to myself the night I discovered his affair, the night I sat in my hotel room, planning my revenge. "Dear future Alice," it began. "When you read this, you'll know if justice was worth the pain it cost to achieve. You'll know if rebuilding was harder than destroying. You'll know who you are when everything you thought you knew about yourself has been stripped away. I hope you're proud of the woman you became. I hope you chose truth over comfort, strength over bitterness, and hope over revenge. But most of all, I hope you chose yourself. Love. Past Alice." I smiled. "Don't forget to water the daisies." I smiled, remembering the woman who had written those words in her darkest hour. She was broken, but not defeated. Betrayed, but not destroyed. It had been me at my lowest, planning my comeback. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my suitcase, a reminder of how far I'd traveled from that hotel room to this new beginning. Outside, a moving truck waited to take my belongings to their new home. Inside, my empty house echoed with memories of pain and triumph. As I locked the door for the last time, I whispered a thank you to the woman I'd been, and a promise to the woman I was becoming. Then I got into my car and drove towards whatever came next, carrying with me nothing but the truth, my hard-won wisdom, and the absolute certainty that I would never again let anyone else write the story of my life. In the rearview mirror, I watched my old life disappear around a corner. In the windshield, I saw the rest of my story waiting to be written. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I couldn't wait to see how it ended.